Is anybody else there?
No, I think because I didn't get the notes. I sent it last weekend. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday class that shall not be named. I'm going to start with apologizing because last I sent a note that there was no class. Apparently, it didn't go out. I just checked again. I sent a note that there is class this week. It didn't go out for some reason. So I apologize. I'll have to look at what happened with my email, what I did wrong. But I did send a note out both times, last week and this week. Last week we didn't have class. This week we did. So apologize again for that. But what can you do? So we're here today to have a wonderful class. And because I didn't send the note out, we only have one couple here, but they're the best ones, so it's okay. So we've got Ron and Arlene, the best ones here. So, and then everybody else, if you'd like to, you can watch on YouTube. We will have class next week. So I want to make sure. And then the week after that, we'll have class and we'll be at Lou Drucker's house. And so that'll be a lot of fun. So we'll do it online. So we do have class this week. We did not have it last week. And I apologize again for not sending out everything appropriately or reliably, but we'll work on that. So we're here today to study since we are here and we have Ron and Arlene, the best ones. I only wanted two. I told everybody we weren't having class actually, except for Ron and Arlene, because I only wanted them. But what we're going to do today is talk about a unique situation in Judaism, something you don't see happen very often, and that is the adding of holy days. So there's a long-standing tradition that you don't add stuff to the calendar because all the holidays are set. However, in the 20th century, we did add 3 different holy days. And one of them was yesterday, one of them was the day before that, and one of them was last week. And we're going to talk a little bit about the additions and the specific reasons for them, which are pretty obvious. So during the Omer, that's the period from Passover to Shavuos, is often considered a holy time. You don't go to parties, some say, until after the 33rd day. Some say you only go to parties on the 33rd day because it's a time period of introspection. Egypt was Passover. We left Egypt, had freedom. Shavuos is getting of the commandments. That is Revelation. So during this period, it's kind of a special time period. However, we added these 2 days, really 3 days to it. And we're going to talk about it. The first one was last week, but that was not the first one added. The first one that comes is, of course, Yom HaShoah. And that is the day of the Shoah, the Holocaust Remembrance Day. And now it seems obvious to us today that we have it. But again, the fact that we added something during this period is very, very not controversial, but it is difficult because a lot of people don't believe you're allowed to do that. So how do we add an entire day for Judaism in which everyone agrees with it? Well, that's easy today because you've got a country that is a Jewish country, and the Israelis are kind of in charge of creating these extra days for everybody. Not everybody agrees with all of them. Not everybody agrees with the way that we celebrate them or the day that we honor people during those days. But Holocaust Remembrance Day was one added pretty soon after the founding of the State of Israel. So it's obvious as to why it was added, because obviously it's the Holocaust, and a lot of people, of course, passed away. Like incredibly high percentage of our people died during this time period. But why did they choose that day? Why did they choose the name? How did it happen? So let's go over some of the preparations. So in late December of 1949, the chief rabbinate of Israel decided that we were going to honor the memory of those people who died in the Holocaust on a day that had already been set aside on the Jewish calendar, the 10th of Tevet. It is a minor fast day. That is fasting during the day. It's not like Yom Kippur where it's a full fast day. It's a minor fast day, but it was already on the calendar. And it is the morning of the beginning to siege Jerusalem. So when Nebuchadnezzar starts to siege Jerusalem, this is the 10th of Tevet. It comes before Tisha B'Av. And so it's in the summer. So this is the day chose. We're going to honor those who died in the Holocaust on the 10th of Tevet, which is already a day of mourning in some ways. They're going to bring ashes and certain other things that were found at concentration camps, and we're going to bury them on this day. We're going to have a radio program the next year. They decided they're going to have memorials, moments around the country, often led by the IDF, Israel Defense Force. And we're going to bury again Torah scrolls and ashes. And this is the preparations for Yom HaShoah. So it's not actually, it's a day to itself. It is just part of another day. But in 1951, 2 years later, the Knesset started debating should we do this day to honor those who died in the Holocaust. We're using the 10th of Tevet, but maybe we should have a day set apart for it, a separate day. And so they discussed some options. I think a primary one was the day before Passover, that they thought that would be a good time. But eventually they decided that why don't we do it on its own day? And so the 27th of Nisan was set. So this year, it was on a weekday. If it's on a Saturday, they'll move it to the day before, or is it the day after? And they decided we're going to have one day because this date was part of the ghetto uprising, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It was before Israel Independence Day. It's actually a little over a week before Israel Independence Day, even though the Warsaw, so we're going to honor those who died and people like those in the ghetto uprising, because this is Israel. Israel's about uprising to, against those who have tried to destroy us. So it was to honor those who died and those who served in the uprisings. They chose this day, the 27th of Nisan. It's in between Passover and Shavuot, so there's no other holiday. They had a stamp made in honor of one of the people led the uprising in Warsaw, the Warsaw Ghetto, because they also have a kibbutz named after him. But then in 1959, it became kind of official that this was Yom HaShoah. This is a day to commemorate the death of all those who died and those who fought back. So it really takes 10 years before it's an official day. In 1959, it's, of course, David Ben-Gurion was still prime minister at the time. There was a law later that says you had to close restaurants on that day. If it's on Shabbat, it's moved back to, not Friday, sorry, it's moved back to Thursday because that's the day of Torah reading. So, and then at sundown, because that's when a Jewish day starts, there would be a ceremony at Yad Vashem, which of course is the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. I don't know if anybody's been there. Ron, I don't know if you guys have been there, or Arlene. It's on a mountain. It's beautifully done. Actually, the architect who did the most recent Yad Vashem, it was renovated and redone a few years ago. The architect who did what is now Yad Vashem is the same architect who did the the Jepson in Savannah. So if you go to both, you can see a little bit of similarities. So in Israel, it's a day where flags are half-mast. There are ceremonies around the country, at schools, at bases. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the air raid siren sounds, and they observe a solemn moment of 2 minutes. So they do this for Yom HaZikaron as well, we'll talk about. So everybody, if you're driving, you get out of the car. The March of the Living eventually was founded, where they went to Auschwitz. They took kids and adults to Auschwitz, Birkenbauer. They would do the walk, and then they would to Israel for Yom HaShoah. There were special memorial prayers written, which is always difficult because writing new liturgy is always complicated. So trying to do that. So you do El Malei Rachamim, which you're only supposed to do with somebody who's died recently, or for Memorial Days, official Memorial Days. But they added El Malei Rachamim, and but you also have the difficulty, as we always do, between different communities. So in the ultra-Orthodox community, adding an extra day as a Memorial Day is just not often allowed. And so a lot of them, I think, still will honor the memory of those who died in the Holocaust, but they still do it on the 10th of Tevet, because it was already a day, a Memorial Day as it was. The rest of the movements, the modern Orthodox and the Reform and Conservative, all kind of do the same thing. So Yom HaShoah has again now been part of our world since 1949, officially since 1951 or 1959, depending how you look at it. And it is a sorrowful day because we know that a high percentage of Jews died during this period, and that the world will never be the same for us. So in Israel, it's obviously, because it's a Jewish country, again, they lower flags, half-mast. Public places are closed, and sometimes restaurants. They have opening ceremonies, they have closing ceremonies, they have siren sounding, and they also have, of course, programs at schools and bases around the country. So that is Yom HaShoah. So that is the earliest of the new days that have been added to the Jewish calendar. So we mentioned it's 8 days before Yom HaTzmaut and Yom HaZikaron. Let's talk about Yom HaZikaron, because it's similar. Yom HaZikaron, the Day of Remembrance, we just had 2 days ago. That is on the 4th of Iyar. And that is a very different Memorial Day than America, because in America, Memorial Day, we do some things with the military, but it's a day off for school. It's a 3-day weekend. In Israel, Yom HaZikaron is the most solemn of all days of the year. Like, people will still go to the beach on Yom Kippur, but on Yom HaZikaron, that's the day where everybody in Israel takes off to honor those who died in service to the country. That's because everybody serves in the country. So everybody knows people who are in the military, because everybody's in the military at some point. And unfortunately, almost everybody knows somebody who died serving in the military, because it's, Israel, even Israel's War of Independence, people are still alive who served in the War of Independence, even though they're very young now. I mean, very old now. Ron.
Yeah, would you ever bring that up in one of your services on a Saturday, what that is? And
I probably should have done it last Saturday. If I had thought about it, I did something else. But yes, I can't do it this Saturday. because it's a bar mitzvah, but maybe I'll do it the
Yeah.
week after. But yes, again, Yom HaZikaron, Israel Remembrance Day, is the day in Israel where everybody goes to their high schools because they all have ceremonies. And unfortunately, every high school has somebody who died in a war or while serving, or who was attacked, killed, God forbid, by an act of terrorism. So Yom HaZikaron is the day that you're going to go to the beaches and, nobody's going to be there. There's flags put on all the graves, and there's a lot around the country. Now, when did it start? It started actually during the actual War of Independence. So they started kind of in 1949. So even before the war was over, so I don't know if it wasn't made officially part of it, but they already started to. And then in 1951, it was made official that it was going to be on the 4th of Iyar. Now, again, they're always put on the Hebrew calendar. So they look like they change on the international calendar, but it's always the same day on the Hebrew calendar. So as of 2022, the number was almost 25,000 people have died. Again, as with Yom HaShoah, it's a lot more now, obviously, because of what happens, probably close to 30,000 now. The day opens with the siren. That's now at 8 p.m. So, Hebrew days, Jewish day starts at night. And they have programs around the country, an opening ceremony, obviously, that's broadcasted around the country. They mention people who are died in pogroms that led to people moving to Israel before the country. They talk about the Maccabees. They have another siren later. There are memorial candles lit around the country, again, at synagogues and schools and public places and army camps. Even modern Orthodox say special prayers for them. Ultra-Orthodox may not. There's a ceremony at Mount Herzl, which is the national cemetery. So it is a very mournful day for the entire country. And again, obviously, if on Shabbat or Friday, even because it may come close, they move it to Thursday. But it is the day in which the whole country comes together to honor the soldiers who served and died during wars or acts of terrorism. And it is a difficult day for everybody because it does happen every year, but unfortunately, Israel lives in a very bad neighborhood. So there's a lot of people die every year. So that is Yom HaZikaron, Israel Independence Day, and obviously it is the most, Yom HaShoah is also a day of mourning, but as we know, not everybody has somebody who died in Yom HaShoah. Not everybody literally knows anybody who died in the Holocaust, or because it's a long time, or knows families of people who died in the Holocaust. But everybody in Israel knows somebody who died in a war of Israel or serving in the military or through terrorism. It's every single person's, knows somebody. And so it's not only a day of honoring those who died in memory, maybe in years past, but everybody knows it's still in their literal memory. And so it is still. Now, what also happened is in a couple of years ago, that if Jews have died in anti-Semitic attacks outside of Israel, they'll be added to the list of those who are mourn on Yom HaZikaron. Now, if you've been to Israel and you've been there in April-ish, maybe early May, but usually April, you'll see it. You'll see the sirens and you'll see everybody going to events. But then it's a very unique Memorial Day because remember, a day starts at night. So you have Yom HaShoah, it starts at night. Sundown the next day, what do you see happen in Israel? Fireworks go off. All of a sudden, after Yom HaZikaron, after Memorial Day, they start shooting off the fireworks. Why? Because in Israel, Yom HaTzmaut, Israel Independence Day, is the next day. So they have Israel Memorial Day right before Israel Independence Day. And since the day starts at night, the fireworks are shot off right after sundown. And you have Israel Independence Day, which is the 5th of ER. And that is the day in 1948, May 14th, 1948, where they signed the Declaration of Independence. Israel doesn't actually have a constitution. So that was the 5th of ER. And so that continues to be Israel Independence Day, May 14th, 1948. But since it's on the Hebrew calendar, so after Yom HaTzmaut, all of a sudden you have Mazel Tovs and you have parades with the Army, Navy, Air Force, and there are flags everywhere and there's parties everywhere. And you see crowds gathering and people doing Israeli dancing, which is not always done, folk dancing, but on this day. And people go around the country on hikes and picnics, and they go to the beach, and they're able to go to army bases to see for ceremonies and to see the new technologies. And they give the Israel Prize, people who have done great things for the country in a variety of areas. And some even say you pray psalms on that day. Even though it's a modern holiday, the fact that the chief rabbinate of the state say you do Hallel and maybe even read Haftorah passages from the prophets, that's pretty big. So a lot of the Orthodox don't do that. They don't add Hallel because that's only for certain holidays, and they don't do some of the things, but some of them do because, you know, you have very diehard modern Orthodox movements. They'll even say the Al Hanisim prayer, which is the prayer that we say on Hanukkah and Purim, and they'll add that to Yom HaTzmaut, and that's a big deal because in Judaism you're not supposed to add things, or you know, things that happened in the past. You don't, and now we're adding to Hanukkah and Purim, which are both holidays that were during biblical times. We're adding this Al Hanisim prayer on Yom HaTzmaut, so it's really quite a big day for the country. Now, for Jews around the world, both of these days also, or all three of these days, are also part of the vernacular, especially Yom HaShoah. You'll see congregations and communities around the country, like for us in Savannah, we do our Yom HaShoah, our Holocaust Memorial Day, all together as a community at the JEA. So we don't really do our own things, we do as a community. We used to have a lot of Yom HaTzmaut, Israel Independence Day stuff. We haven't done as much recently, probably should, but we'll do that hopefully next year. You know, we sing Hatikva, there's special prayers for services, and it is basically a day of great celebration. Just like in America, it kind of may take some things from, you know, Independence Day in America, because you'll see the planes flying and singing Hatikva, and people are in parades and people are at the beach. And so it's kind of like, you know, very similar to July 4th here. And so these are the 3 days that have been added during this period of the Omer. And it's pretty impressive because, again, adding days to the calendar is not usually done in the Jewish world because all of our holidays are really old, like 2,000 years plus old. So the idea that we will add these dates to the Jewish calendar is pretty amazing. Now, obviously, There's, you know, controversy because those who don't like Israel will not acknowledge it. But nowadays they do a big event on Israel Independence Day in Rabin Square. That's where Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, which really created, if he had not been assassinated, the world might be very different today. We don't know. But he was. And so this is, so it's really amazing that even in the modern Orthodox world that keep a very strict tradition, that they will add prayers to this holiday and that they will celebrate it as well. So in Israel, these are the 3 days that have been added. So we can talk, any questions, Ron or Arlene?
Yeah, they keep adding all these things, but it's a little confusing because in Israel, do they think more about what's going on now, or do they really think about the people that perished years ago?
They do both. Again, it's since it's very different than America in some ways. Like July 4th is, in Memorial Day. So in America, even though we're a new country, when we do Memorial Day, we're thinking about people who died in 1776. That was before living memory. For Israeli Memorial Day, we're talking 1948, which, although was a long time ago, it was not so long ago that there's nobody living. It was 78 years ago. So there are still people today, lots of them, who are living during the War of Independence. There are still people alive who fought in the War of Independence. There are people alive whose parents died in the War of Independence, or grandparents. So it's still living memory in Israel. When in America, it is not. Nobody knows, nobody remembers anybody who died in the war in 1776. So right now in Israel, they think both about people who died yesterday and people who died when the war started, because they know them, they're still there. And even if I didn't know my grandfather who fought and died, my parents do. So you still have that connection that will not be there in 100 years. In 100 years, it'll be like America. Nobody knows anybody who died during 1948. But in the meantime, it is a much more celebrated and mourned time period because it's such a new country in comparison to America. So we can do, what were Americans doing in 1840? But back then, of course, people didn't live as long. So it may not be. What were people doing in 1820s to remember those who died in the war? So it's a really amazing thing that they do there. And to be part of it, which I have been, is really quite inspiring. So hopefully in the future, though, they won't have as many wars or people dying in the military. But no matter what, even if you're not in a war, people are still dying in the military. They die in training exercises. They die going to protect people. So it's always going to be important as it is in America. So that's Yom HaShoah, 8 days before Yom HaZikaron. So Yom HaShoah, day of the Holocaust. Yom HaZikaron, day of remembrance. So it is Memorial Day. Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day. And those are the 3 that have been added to the calendar. So in around the world, Jews celebrate or mourn on all of them. But on Israel, it's even more so. So any thoughts or questions? And it's important because as the dates of these events get farther away from memory, we have to make sure we keep celebrating or memorializing those who died, because eventually there's going to be nobody living who survived the Holocaust. And eventually there's going to be nobody whose parents survived the Holocaust. And eventually there's going to be no one who actually ever met somebody who survived the Holocaust, because that's what's going to happen in 100 years. So you have to maintain these ceremonies and institutionalize these traditions. You can't count just on memory, because memory does not last forever. So hopefully that's what we'll be doing in 100 and 200 years. They'll still be saying that's a day we remember, so we don't do it again.
Well, it all depends on what's going on in the world.
It does.
For instance, if in 100 years there's still a lot of anti-Semitism, you can't forget way back.
Right. Hopefully.
So let's hope that anti-Semitism is really down.
Amen. Or disappears completely. Hopefully it'll be like a unicorn, or something we don't believe happened. So I apologize again. I did send an email out last week saying we weren't have class. Apparently it didn't get stuck in my sent. I sent an hour this week. I sent one out saying we do have class. I probably forgot to put my name in the to section because I BCC'd everybody. So for those who are watching on YouTube, and for Ron and Arlene, anybody else who's on here who's not on the camera, we will have class next week. And then the class after that. So next week, let's see, make sure I got the dates right. So next week is the 29th, and we have class. The week after that is May 6th, and we will have class online, but it'll also be in person at Lou Drucker's house. So we'll send out the address next week. But so we have class next week, the week after, and the week after. Then the week after that, and I have to go to something for my kid. But for the next 3 weeks, we do have class. So as for what is coming up, it is an incredible amount of things coming up in our congregation. This weekend, we have Zach Berwitz's bar mitzvah on Saturday morning. We have our Shalom School service on Friday night. Next Tuesday, April 28th, we have an information session at 5:30 for anyone who wants to help tutor kids to read better. It's through a city school district program that we're going to be helping kids with their reading. The first weekend in May, we have the opening of the wonderfully new exhibition, Forging Our Sacred Liberty, an exhibition on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and Religious Freedom. That exhibition is going to be up for 6 months. All members can come for free. That'll be the opening weekend, though, where we're going to have guest speaker, Dr. Rabbi Gary Zola, who's the former director of the American Jewish Archives. He'll be speaking here Friday night, Saturday morning, and Saturday nights for donors. Then the next Friday, we have Shabbat Around the World, where we're going to talk about Jews in Italy and have an Italian dinner. So please RSVP, and that is, I think, a paid dinner. Also, the Friday night with Gary Zola, it's free to come to the talk and services, but there's a paid dinner after. On May 9th, we have Women of Mikveh Israel Shabbat. That's May 9th. So everybody is invited as the Women of Mikveh Israel lead the whole service. And on May 29th and 30th, that weekend, we're going to have our Shabbaton. So please check online to RSVP for all the different things. So I want to thank Ron and Arlene, the Iron Men of the Cal Ripken Jr.
Yeah, one other thing, Rabbi, is that we also have the annual meeting coming up.
That's right. Thank you, Ron. And I did not put that on there, but I need to. The annual meeting will be, give me a second, let me get that date for you. And I did not put on announcements. I don't know why, but I need to, because we changed the bylaws, so we have to have a larger number of people come to vote. So if you can, please come to that. Or if you are out of town, or sick, you can send in a proxy for your vote. So we'll be voting on a couple of changes to our bylaws, and we'll be voting to whether enter into negotiations with our cantor. So make sure you come. That's going to be on Sunday, May 17th at 4 o'clock. So make sure to come because we need a certain amount of votes, 10% of the members of our community, since we've grown a
Yeah,
lot. That's a lot of people.
Bob Greenberg sent out an email asking people to RSVP, but he didn't leave to where.
Okay, so yeah, just call the office or SB and tell them you're going to come. And you can also just show up. And if you can't make it because you're sick or because you're out of town, you can just fill out a proxy card and say, yes or no to whatever the items are. It's a short meeting because we're changing. We had an annual meeting in January, but because we're changing our fiscal year now from an calendar year to a fiscal year. So we're starting our fiscal year now, July 1st. So we'll be having our annual meeting in May every year now. But because of this changeover, we have two within 5 months of each other. So it's a unique situation. So all my best, everybody.
Looking forward to seeing you and Zach on Saturday.
He's going to do a fabulous job. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
So from us to everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful week and enjoy all the things that are here in our area of the world. April is a beautiful month, so enjoy every minute of it. And we will see you next week when I hopefully send out the email correctly for the Wednesday class that shall not be named. And we'll see you then, and see you, Ron and Arlene. Hopefully we'll see you all this weekend for the events, and I'll talk to you guys next week.